Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Small School AD on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with this week's small school guest. But first, we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all outstanding companies. I highly recommend that you check them out. So take 3 minutes. That's all it's going to be. Listen to our shout outs, then listen to our interview. And then, if you're not using these companies, check them out. You're going to be very glad you did. Here we go. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, Hometown Ticketing is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. That's hometownticketing.com. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school, tremendous success because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be very glad you did. We also want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And having that data in your hands is incredibly valuable, especially when you're meeting with that frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They'll create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. It's athleticsurveys.com. We want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, results, rosters, communication. Their eligibility and athletic clearance platform alone is worth the price. Go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. Make sure you mention the website or the podcast too. That's homecampus.com. We want to thank our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Once again, don't forget to mention the podcast. We want to thank Gipper. You know, your students are on social media, and if they don't see content that acknowledges and celebrates their accomplishments as well as promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. Their team will have you creating world-class content in seconds, and it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com. Once again, mention the podcast to get a nice discount. Gipper.com. We want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant AD did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's reasonably priced, just 20 months, totally online. And you're not only getting your master's degree from Ohio University, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. That's ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters. We want to thank our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids at the highest level. Our kids love the videos, our parents love the streaming, but there's a lot more. Go to huddle.com. Tell them where you heard about it. That's huddle.com. And we want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get more information. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Small School Athletic Director on the Educational AD Podcast. This is a weekly series where we visit with small school athletic directors from across the country. Our definition of a small school is something maybe 300 to 400 students or less in the high school. We've had, I think, maybe one or two with a few more than that. But folks have heard us say this before. The phrase "a department of one" certainly talks about the small school AD wearing many hats. We're excited today. We're going to the state of Illinois and we're going to be visiting with Sarah Chapman. Sarah is a registered athletic administrator, and she is an assistant principal and AD at Hiawatha Junior Senior High School. And like I said, that's in Illinois. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Well, for our listeners, we're recording this on October 10th. We're just dodged, many of us in Florida just dodged a hurricane bullet. So we're glad to be on the air. Um, Sarah, we try to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about your school setting. And then I'm excited to hear what kind of tips you have for our listeners.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I attended Rochelle Township High School, which is a bigger setting, about 1,200 kids in the building. I was a multi-sport athlete, very good student. I had opportunities to play softball in college, but ultimately I turned them all down to pursue my career in education. My parents weren't necessarily the happiest with me, but I think in the long run have seen, what kind of impact my choices have made. I went to Illinois State University, graduated there with my bachelor's and LBS1, Learning Behavior Specialist. I was a special ed teacher for 10 years. I spent a majority of those years at Sycamore High School, just, down the road here. And during my time at Sycamore, I was a coach as well. I coached volleyball. I was their JV, second level, middle level coach. And then I was an assistant varsity softball coach. And so during my teaching and my coaching times, right, the best times I've ever had. Those of you that, I don't know if this is ever going to be live where people could watch, I have this poster right here from in 2019, we actually won the state championship for softball. So I have that framed here with my IHSA medal, and unfortunately my athletic director from Sycamore wouldn't let me bring my trophy with me, but I still, it was a great time of my life. So now, while I was at Sycamore, I knew that, I wanted to pursue some bigger options. And I knew sports was a huge part of my life. And I really enjoyed the aspect of coaching kids. So I just kind of took that and ran with it. And I went into the path of becoming an athletic director to be able to coach coaches, essentially, to give a better experience for kids. So last year was my first year at Hiawatha Junior Senior High School. And this is year 2 for me here. And the experience has been both challenging and rewarding. And, I definitely love being in the athletic director position more than I thought I would. So that's exciting for me.
Oh, well, I always love to hear the journeys that we all take. And, again, you mentioned this is your first year, as an AD. We use the expression, usually talking about coaches, but it's true with ADs as well, that you don't know what you don't know. So
Right.
I'm sure you've found out some things, but since you are on the ground, as a working AD, what are some things that you have already found out to be helpful for you in your setting that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, so a little bit about Hiawatha here. In our high school, we have about 130 students, and a lot of those kids are multi-sport athletes, and a lot of the kids in the families are essentially homegrown, right? Like they've been here their whole life. our actual building itself here. I am a assistant principal athletic director for 6 through 12, but we are actually pre-K through 12 all under one roof. So these kids are in this building their entire life. So one of the things that I learned really quickly last year when I came on was that, this place is really close knit. And that I had to kind of do my best to get out there and meet the families and, just kind of show my face, maybe a little bit more than you would have to at a bigger school district, just because the community is so small. Everybody talks to everybody, and just kind of being out, being personable with the families, I think has been a huge impact for me. Just because, like, if I ever needed anything, right, I have all of these connections now. The kids are comfortable coming to me, just being, around and available for them.
Yeah, again, being present is certainly one of those tools that we hear frequently in our regular interviews for the Toolbox collection. Um, as you have gotten to know the students, the community there at your school, um, what are some things that you're thinking, hey, this is really good. We need to keep this. And maybe what's something that you're thinking you might tweak, try to maybe even improve?
So, something that, again, coming along with being such a small school, the support that the kids have for one another is incredible, right? Like, we only have, because of our small numbers, we only have football and volleyball in the fall. We have boys and girls basketball in the winter, and then we have baseball and softball in the spring. So a lot of the kids are playing all sports all seasons long. But the thing that I find really interesting and enjoyable is that the kids really support each other. Like, at volleyball games, we have even though we're so small, like, we have a huge student section. Football games, our kids are out there, they're cheering for the teams. The thing that, I wish that we could leave behind is like, even though that they're supportive of each other, the teams themselves sometimes have the mentality of, like, well, we're so small, we're not very good, we're never gonna be, one of the top teams because we're so small. So this past summer, I implemented a lot of summer camps. These kids never had, well, again, another problem is that being such a small school, obviously our financials are not where most other schools are. So being able to find good coaches and coaches that want to stay and, develop athletes and develop programs has been really challenging for Hiawatha. So one of my goals last year moving into this year was to kind of establish a really good team for myself, a good team of coaches that are, willing to put in the work, willing to put in, the extra time to help develop these programs and these kids. So last year was the first time in probably 20 years that this school has ran summer camps, not just for the high school kids, but for our youth. Because, again, being such a small school, we don't have a park district, we don't have anything like that where that are running local youth programs. So kind of for my future, right? Like, my next step with this is we offered summer camps this last summer for high school down through third grade. My future brain wants to include like, in the winter, doing like a third through fifth grade, just a little league here at the school. Again, the kids they're in our building, so it's not like I have to go chase them and try to find them. They're here. So trying to implement some sort of leagues for our kids that are just in-house, supervised and run by our high school kids as officials, right? It's good for them to show their faces. The kids look up. I tell these kids all the time, right? The littles in this building look up to you because you're here and they can see you. So getting them on the court with the littles is going to be, I'm just hoping to, build those skills starting at such a young age, so that when they get to high school, they lose that thought of, well, we're not very good, right? Because we've given them the tools and we've given them the practice to get there.
Now, that's truly what we call a best practice. Most of the schools I was at were private schools, smaller schools, but we would have junior camps, whatever our mascot was, Junior Crusader, and we'd have different weeks during the summer, a week for first and second grade, a week for third and fourth, and we told our head coaches, and they embraced it. You're going to run this week or weeks of camps, and they had the varsity kids come in to help out, be counselors, and it really generated enthusiasm. Parents were grateful because they had a quality place to drop their kids off.
Mhm.
It started to build that brand recognition. So for us, kids, when they got to seventh and eighth grade, they already knew our high school coaches. They were part of that family. And so we really cut down on what had been a little bit of attrition of kids going to different high schools instead of continuing at our high school. We were a K through 12 school. So you are right on path of a best practice. Um, I'm going to let you out of here with this one. Now, we mentioned at the top of the show, you are a registered athletic administrator. So you're starting your journey, with your state association and with the NIAAA. How I'll just phrase it this way. How valuable have those foundational courses been for you as a new AD? You weren't new to athletics, again, you knew your way around the gym, but any I guess lessons or points from those foundational courses that you're going, boy, I'm really glad I took those first couple courses.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I remember sitting, not this past summer, but the summer before my very first year. I remember sitting in our new AD like training down at the IHSA headquarters. And I remember sitting there in my first class and we were going through like different scenarios and it's like, holy cow, like what would you do? Like this is a real situation that could happen. Like how would you address that? And so I remember just taking tons of notes and being like, because at that point in the summer, right, I really had just gotten my feet wet. Like I had started on July 1. I think these trainings were like July 15th or 16th, something like that. So I had been in the office for 2 weeks. I was taking tons of notes at that training. And then I remember getting to one of the legal ones. And I was like, holy crap, I need to make sure that we're doing all of these things. So I brought all of that back. I shared it with my principal at the time. And I was just like, we need to make sure like XYZs. I shared it with my superintendent. He's been super supportive of me and all of the change that I've been doing so far for Hiawatha, which has been great. But there were something about my position here is that in the past 5 years, not including last year, but the past 5 years, there has been 4 different people in my position. So it was just tons and tons of turnover. Nothing could be consistent. Nothing could get it really established because person was here for a year and then they leave. And then somebody else was trying to build their ground and then they leave. So I think my consistency here, at least, I mean, I know it's only been 2 years, but for the kids to see me coming back in this role, I think gave them a huge sense of relief. But it just, it helps me continue to establish this foundation of like, these are the legal things that we need to make sure that we're meeting. These are, from each program, like you make sure your culture is where it needs to be. Because that's huge and it impacts these kids more than you know. I talk a lot with my coaches about being transformational and not transactional, right? Like there are so many things that athletics and coaches and activities just in the high school setting in general teach high school kids besides the X's and O's. And that's where I'm trying to get all of the programs here to understand, right? Like I don't necessarily care about wins and losses. Yeah, wins are fun and you're not necessarily not having fun if you're not winning, but to get there, right, we have to hit all these little pieces first. And, the trainings that, through the NIAA and IADA have been so eye-opening and so helpful. I actually So I have my RAA. I've got one more class to finish, and then I got to take my test for my CAA, which I'll do in May, because you can't take the test until you've completed 2 years of being an
right?
athletic director. I actually have taken the it's called 790, which is one of the
Right.
LTC classes. So I can instruct.
Mhm.
So I'm slated to teach some classes this May at the state conference. You know, the best, you know, that just is my teacher part of me, right? Like I love being able to teach people about these things just as much as I love learning about them. So I mean the NIAAA and the IADA are just huge resources, and you know the things that they have taught me and provide for me are extremely invaluable. You know, I love them so much.
Boy, that's actually a master class template for our listeners, especially people just starting out, of how to, really dive in and embrace the athletic director role. Get involved at the state level. Start
Yep,
taking the LTI courses. Get your
absolutely.
RAA. You mentioned 790. That is so great. 790 is the course that you need to take so you can then start teaching courses, at your state level, maybe even progress to become a member of the national faculty.
Mhm.
Great, great stuff. And on the area of certification, for listeners, every single state has a certification coordinator. So if you have questions about it, reach out to them first. Feel free to reach out to me too. I was on the National Certification Committee for many years, and I still help people prepare for their CAA exams. I help people organize their CMAA project. So again, reach out to your state association, reach out to me. Pretty soon you're going to be reaching out to Sarah as well. Speaking of that, Sarah, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, find out how you're doing things at Hiawatha, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
I would say the best way that you could get a hold of me is probably through my school email. You know, I am one of those people that have their email on all the time. You know, some athletic directors that I've talked with and networked with, they're like, you got to have balance. You got to keep your phone off, you know, when you go home. And I'm not there yet, right? Like, I still feel like I'm an important person and I'm needed when I'm needed. So my school email is Sarah, Sarah, dot Chapman, Chapman, at d426.org. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Where, you know, I can, if it pops through, like I'll see it, you know, sometimes I've noticed more recently, like text messages will come through, I'll open them and then I won't have time to respond. And then I'll come back like hours later and I'm like, oh no, I forgot to respond to you. But if it's in my email, right, I see that all day, you know, I'll be able to get back whenever I get a chance.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on Small School AD. All the best with the continued seasons. Are we going to be able to see you down in Austin for the national conference this year?
No, I know. I actually will be walking for my master's class or my master's at my graduation ceremony that weekend. So I will not be down at National Convention this year. But I was just talking with Peter Goff, who is the president of the IADA here in Illinois. I was talking with him yesterday, and he was showing me kind of like what the costs were for his district to send him there. So now I have some good kind of just data to show to my superintendent, right? Like I said before, financials in this district are not necessarily super compared to other places. So my goal though, one day is to get down there to that national convention or wherever it is. I would love to experience that.
Well, talk to your superintendent. Professional development funds are typically available for teachers and administrators. See if you can use some of that. And if you can't make it to Texas this year, we definitely want to see you down in Tampa, Florida next year
Okay.
for the national conference. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. I will do my best, Jake.
All right. Well, again, thanks again for sharing. And we want to say thanks to our listeners too. And remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this segment every week, and just about every day we try to share stories and best practices for athletic directors and leaders. So come back and join us again for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Before we go, we do want to acknowledge all of our great sponsors. Ohio University and their online master's program. That's ohio.edu/info/MAA. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. That's hometownticketing.com. I want to thank Gipper. Go to gipper.com. Start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. We'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com. I want to say thanks to Huddle. I used Huddle as a football coach. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com to get started. I want to thank SnapRaise, the #1 online fundraising platform. That's snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Home Campus. It's a platform that you're going to use every day. Go to homecampus.com. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. You've heard me say before, probably one of the best purchases I ever made. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. And we'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing. It's hometownticketing.com. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you come back and join us again for another small school athletic director journey on the Educational AD Podcast.